Hi guys, I am here with your Bible reading. I hope you guys are having a good day. Think you sure? That looks good. Ooh, it looks like it's about to fall off, is it?
It's fine.
Guys, please pray for our neighbor that lives up above us, Paris Jude. He's the one that I have on our prayer list that I told you has COPD. He is up there having one of his bad coughing spells right now. Because I can hear him. Sometimes it'll go on for a while. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll stop and then it'll start again in a little bit. But, you know, as well as I can hear him down here. And I know how bad it hurts when you just regularly cough. How it hurts in your chest and your back. I don't know if you can hear him or not, but if you could hear him, it's gotta hurt him so bad having to cough like that. And every day, all throughout the day and night. I don't know how he sleeps. I hope he's got one of those things under his bed to, you know, raise his bed up. Because if he laid flat, I don't know if he could even. Maybe he's got a CPAP machine. I don't know. I never thought of that before. That's scary now. And please keep him in your prayers. It's like I said, he's having a really bad coughing spell right now. So Sherm was going through a box of our old things last night, and he brought this out for me, and I got this years and years and years ago when Mom, me, and my stepdad at the time were in an old thrift store, and I saw this Jesus box. Looks like this. It's got this pretty picture of Jesus with the sheep in the pasture there, and I was going to get it, and then I picked it up, and I think it was like a quarter. It was really cheap. It was a quarter or $1. I don't remember. And I picked it up, and I'm like, this is really heavy. And I opened it, and there's a bunch of cards inside. So that made me want it all the more, because I figured I knew what it was. And it's got some of Dottie's hair in the box. The cards, a lot of them have scriptures on them with the verses and the other ones have anonymous sayings by people. And other ones just have sayings that, you know, just helpful little sayings by different random people. So I thought we would read one every day. Sherm, would you like to pick our card for today? I'm not going to do them in order. We're just going to, you know,
Go ahead.
pick one that we feel is the need to pick one. Like I'll do Bible verses in my Bible sometime. Pick one. Alright, so let's pick one. Sometimes we'll do it before our reading. Sometimes we'll do it after. So we'll do it before this time. So let's pick one here. We'll read both sides. Saint Augustine on this side, it says, "It is love that asks, that seeks, that knocks, that finds, and that is faithful to what it finds." And this on the other side is Acts chapter 17 verse 27. "Seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him. He is not far from each one of us." And amen. That is so very true. Jesus, God our Father, our brother Jesus, God our Father, they are both waiting right there for you. They are there for you 24/7. Every single day of the year. Anytime you need them, they are there waiting for you to come to them. Just start talking to them. You don't even have to talk out loud. Talk through your heart, talk in your mind to them. They know. They're all powerful. You don't need to talk with your mouth. I talk to God in my head and my brother Jesus in my head all the time. I'd go crazy if I didn't. I couldn't get through a day without talking to them. I'd feel lost. You don't know what a difference it makes how you feel in your life. You know, I actually talking to them and having God, treating him as your father and treating Jesus as your brother. It's instead of just like a character in a book or something, you know what I mean? You'd be amazed. Okay, guys. Our reading today is John chapter 6, verses 1 through 21. And we'll be reading in the New International Version. And we'll be talking about Jesus feeding the 5,000 and Jesus walking on water. And then we're continuing on with Psalm 106. Psalm 106 we started yesterday, and it's basically about the Israelites talking to the Lord about how their ancestors treated the Lord when he rescued them from the land of Egypt. You know how God kept helping them, and the Israelites would turn their back on him. The Hebrews would turn their back on him. Like, for instance, the one time they turned their back on the Lord when Moses went up to the mountain, you know, when he was getting the 10 Commandments. And they didn't think Moses was coming back, and they made a golden calf to worship. That's just one instance. They kept doing that stuff, like this, doing bad things to the Lord, to anger the Lord all the time. That's why they had to stay in the desert for 40 years, because God was waiting for one generation to die out before he let them go to the promised land, because of all the bad they had done. Because they would not trust in him, and after all they had seen and all they had done, and all they knew that the Lord could do, because they seen it. He sent food to them from heaven. The bread of angels they ate. He sent birds for them to eat. You know, good birds. Not like just birds from, you know, or was it quail? I think it was quail. And he had Moses crack a rock, a big rock, and water gushed out of it, so they could, like, enough for a river, so they could have water to drink in the desert. I mean, just so many wonderful things. And you know about parting the sea, and you know all the plagues that happened and everything in Egypt. And you can find those in Exodus if you want to read that in the Old Testament. That's where you can find about Moses and all of that. God rescuing them from Egypt with the plagues and everything like that. You can find that in the second book of the Bible in the Old Testament, the book of Exodus. Okay. So anyway, sorry. And then we will be reading Proverbs chapter 14, verses 32 and 33. Okay, and we'll be reading in the New International Version if you'd like to follow along. Some time after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is, the Sea of Tiberias. And a great crowd of people followed him, because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? Of course, Jesus already knew what he was going to do. He was just wanting to see what, Philip would say. He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there, and that's not including women and children that were there. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted to eat. He did the same with the fish, gave thanks, and the disciples passed it out. When they had all had enough to eat, they all ate and were satisfied. They all got full. He said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 basketfuls with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. Out of those little fish and those little loaves of bread, after Jesus broke them and gave thanks and broke them, after 5,000 men plus women and children ate and were all full, they gathered up 12 basketfuls of pieces left over. Ain't that something? 12 basketfuls of the pieces of the barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. After the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world." Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. Jesus went off by himself a lot so he could pray. He always liked to go off and, pray, to talk to his Father, our Father. When evening came, his disciples went down to the lake. Now this is where we're going to hear about Jesus walking on water. Okay? Where they got into a boat and set off across the lake for Capernaum. Now they're way out in the lake, okay? By now it was already dark. By now it was dark, and Jesus had not yet joined them. A strong wind was blowing, and the waters grew rough. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus approaching, walking on the water, and they were frightened. They thought Jesus was a ghost. Because what man could walk on water? They were 3 to 4 miles out from the shore. But he said to them, "It is I, don't be afraid." Then they were willing to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the shore where they were heading. Who would not be terrified seeing that, right? It was like dark, and you're out in the middle of the water in a boat. The storm's getting rough, and you see somebody walking at you on the water. Of course, they're going to be they think, "Oh, it's a ghost," because nobody's ever seen a person walk on water, And then when Jesus got into the boat, of course, the winds and everything died down, and all was calm then. That's just one time Jesus helped him when they was in the boat. There's other times, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Okay. Our Psalm 106, verses 13 through 31. But they soon forgot what he had done and did not wait for his plan to unfold. In the desert they gave in to their craving. In the wilderness they put God to the test. So he gave them what they asked for. This is what I was telling you about, how God sent down to them the bread of angels from heaven. And he sent down birds for them to eat because they wanted meat. They wasn't satisfied with just the bread to eat, the manna. They wanted meat. So God gave it to them. But they were happy for a while, but then they always wanted something else. It's like God was never good enough. That makes me so mad, because how could you treat God that way after you see and see and see all that he has done? I don't get it. It's horrible. Anyway, sorry. In the wilderness they put God to the test, so he gave them what they asked for, but sent a wasting disease among them. In the camp they grew envious of Moses and of Aaron, who was consecrated to the Lord. Aaron, Moses' brother, was the priest. The earth opened up and swallowed Dathan. It buried the company of Abram. Fire blazed among their followers. Dathan was bad. A flame consumed the wicked. At Horeb they made a calf. This is the golden calf I was telling you about. Because they wanted something to worship. They didn't want to worship the Lord. Because, Moses went up to get the 10 Commandments from the Lord. And they thought Moses wasn't coming back and the Lord had left them. So they kept harassing Aaron. So, make us something to worship. So they threw all the golden stuff in the fire, and this image of a calf came out. So they thought it was, a holy thing. So they worshipped that stupid golden calf. All right. At Horeb they made a calf and worshipped an idol cast from metal. They exchanged their glorious God for an image of a bull, which eats grass. They forgot the God who saved them, who had done great things in Egypt, miracles in the land of Ham, and awesome deeds by the Red Sea. You know the stuff that he did. If you've heard the story of Moses and what God did with the plagues and everything. How can somebody turn their back on God after seeing all that? Not to count all the stuff God's done for them through the desert. So he said he would destroy them, had not Moses, his chosen one, stood in to breach before him, to keep his wrath from destroying them. Then they despised the pleasant land. They did not believe his promise. They grumbled in their tents and did not obey the Lord. So he swore to them with uplifted hand that he would make them fall in the wilderness, make their descendants fall among the nations, and scatter them throughout the lands. They yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor and ate sacrifices offered to lifeless gods. They aroused the Lord's anger by their wicked deeds, and a plague broke out among them. But Phinehas stood up and intervened, and the plague was checked. This was credited to him as righteousness for endless generations to come. They were very lucky for Phinehas at that time, and very lucky for Moses a lot of times for intervening, or God would have destroyed them. They turned their backs on God. Pretty much is like spitting in God's face, some of the things that they did and said. And if Moses and Phinehas and them hadn't intervened, to beg to ask the Lord, beg the Lord, please forgive them. And God being a just and loving God, of course, forgave over and over and over and over again, just like you would your own children. We're God's children, and He always forgives us. He knows if you mean when you ask for forgiveness, if you really mean it, and when you don't. Because remember, God always knows what's in your hearts and what's in your minds. He knows what you're thinking. People on this earth don't, but God does. Jesus does. Remember that. He knows the truth. You can't fool God. Everything in the dark will come to the light. Okay, guys, and we're ending today's Bible reading with Proverbs chapter 14, verses 32 and 33. When calamity comes, the wicked are brought down, but even in death the righteous seek refuge in God. Wisdom reposes in the heart of the discerning, and even among fools she lets herself be known. And that was Proverbs chapter 14, verses 32 and 33. What's the time, sure?
21.
Okay, guys, we're going to go over the list of prayer requests really quick. If I can get my book out, I need to put this box somewhere else. My camera only goes to 30 minutes. I really need to look for another camera. So I'm not going to, you guys know if you've been watching for a while what's wrong with everybody. I don't got time on the camera to go through all that today, so we'll just go through the list of names.
22.
Please keep the following people in prayer: Heather Edwards, Eric, Macy, Christopher Serback, Margie and Chuck Sickles, Norma Boyer, Garnet Boyer, Miranda and Jeremy Caverly, April and Linda Thacker, Sherman Crabtree, Cindy Welsh, Rhonda Karshner, Jimmy Myers, Abby Myers, Barb Post, Doris Thompson, Lonnie Dawes Jr. and family, Debbie Lee, Kenny Wellen, Melody Ramey, Mindy Gallimore, Sandy and Rosie, Paris Jude, Shannon and her little son Giovanni, Roy and Lori Mollett, Tammy Ashworth, Norman Karshner, Ariana Lloyd, Chrissy, Kat, Alicia, Ramona Henry, Patty Haynes, and all the homeless people and animals. Okay, guys, that was everything for today. We hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Let's bring those souls to Jesus, and God willing, we'll see you guys again tomorrow with another Bible reading. Bye, guys. God bless.